today's video, we will take our time, no rushing, no jumping between stories because sometimes, a single story does deserve, one's full attention. And today we'll be focusing on one name, one timeline, and one unfolding situation being the Clocket Queen's demise. Sisisi Tolashe, who was a leader, who sat in cabinet holding one of the most sensitive portfolios in government. We're talking about a minister who carried, the responsibility of social development, a department dedicated to the most vulnerable in our society. And now she has been removed, scrutinized, and is facing internal party processes. This situation is not merely about politics, but it's also about, how power is exercised. It's also about how accountability is triggered and what happens when pressure begins to mount. What we're witnessing here, family, is not a singular event. It's a sequence, a build-up, and a turning point. Now, guys, all sources will be in the description box below. And I strongly encourage you to read further and form your own understanding. Without wasting any more time, let us get into today's video.
Mulini, and welcome to yet another episode of Conversations with Nkosi. Now, this is the news commentary section where we will be offering insightful commentary and exploring various perspectives on the stories that shape our world.
Let's dive into a moment that really turned the tides. Now, guys, on the 14th of March, 2026, Cupcake made the decision to remove Sisisi Tolashe from her position as Minister of Social Development. He had every right to make that call, and it was clearly, within his presidential powers. But what's particularly interesting here is that it wasn't just a random decision, there was a lot going on behind the scenes, which actually led up to this moment. And, we're talking about weeks of, scrutiny, public questions, and mounting political pressure surrounding her leadership and conduct. People were raising concerns and the media was buzzing with discussions about her effectiveness, in the role. So her removal was not just out of the blue. It was more of a reaction to the growing issues that had become, hard to ignore. In the world of politics, timing often matters a lot, and this situation was no exception. I mean, the timing of the decision also reflects, the complexities and challenges that leaders face when responding to public sentiment and, dealing with political dynamics. It's a reminder that actions in politics are rarely taken lightly and are often, the result of careful consideration and the broader context at play. Now, from Pali to Kongi, here's where the story gets really interesting. Getting kicked out of cabinet wasn't the end of the line for Sisisi Tolashe. It was just the start of a whole new chapter. After her dismissal, the focus shifted from government issues to what the party had to say about it. The ANC's Integrity Commission stepped in to take a closer look at what had happened and put together their findings, which they then served, with the National Executive Committee of the ANC. Then came a big moment. The NEC agreed with the Integrity Commission's findings and decided to send Tolashe over the party's disciplinary committee. But wait, it didn't stop there, guys. Reports mentioned that she was also told to step down from her roles as a member of parliament and the president of the ANC Women's League. Now, what all this means is that the consequences for Tolashe basically were evolving. And it wasn't just about her government job anymore, but it had now turned into a big deal for the party itself. Now, this matters because it highlights, the how do I say this without sounding weird? It highlights that the problem reached beyond just her position. It wasn't just about, affection protecting its faction. It was beyond factional lines at this point, beyond just her position. It then became about the integrity and reputation of the ANC as an institution. In other words, what Umama did wasn't just a personal issue anymore, but it had implications, for the party as a whole. Now, there are those that are wondering, Opa, what fueled this? What led to this? To answer your question, ours is to take a closer look at what led to, this entire situation. And one of the major points of contention that gained significant media attention revolves around the two luxury SUVs that were reportedly donated for the ANC Women's League's use. However, as the story unfolded, it emerged that these vehicles became embroiled in controversy due to allegations that they were registered in the names of family members rather than the organization itself. And I'm talking about family members that are said to also be Umam Sisisi Tolashe's children. So, nyayibona? Now, while this detail itself might seem minor at first glance, it raises serious concerns about transparency and accountability, particularly regarding the boundaries between public service and personal benefit. But the issues with the SUVs are just a piece of, a larger puzzle. Other troubling matters have come to light, including questions surrounding the use of state resources, irregular appointments within her department, which only add to the worries about how things are being managed. Additionally, there have also been reports involving an employee connected to the department whose role has sparked further scrutiny regarding the overall functioning of the department itself. Now, family, it is also essential to note that these are still allegations and reported claims with, investigations ongoing. However, what really stands out for me politically is not just the singular nature, of a single allegation. It's the cumulative effect of all these issues. You know how they keep on stacking up nicely, like how you build a Lego and that's not cute. That is not cute, because each accusation adds to a growing narrative that raises critical questions about governance and ethical conduct in public office. Now, guys, here's the reality. Abaholi, who are leaders, ne? For those of you abangazuthi abaholi yini, they don't usually fall because of a single incident. Leaders stumble when questions linger, scrutiny intensifies, and public confidence starts to fade. And right now, we're witnessing just that, a pattern forming over time that makes action not just likely but unavoidable. And once that tipping point is reached, everything begins to move quickly. One decision leads to another. First, there's the removal from cabinet, then the Integrity Commission gets involved, followed by a disciplinary process, and eventually the calls for resignation. Now, it's not one isolated moment, but rather a chain reaction that can't be ignored. Now, this is where the conversation shifts. It's interesting to think about everything that transpired and what it all signifies. Yeah, guys, I don't know if y'all remember, but I don't call her the Clocket Queen for nothing. And I'm so sorry to digress for a few minutes, but I coined her that nickname because she is known for being the queen of clockets. There was this one video of Sisisi Tolashe at, I think it was an ANC rally, and she was wearing her blouse, and she kept on doing that clocket thing. And then there was also the State of the Nation address, and she did the same thing. So just they're like, okay, this lady loves to clock it, I just don't know what happened here. Like, I honestly do not know what happened here. Literally. And this is where we actually ask ourselves, what happened to Sisisi Tolashe? But then again, if we dig deeper, a little deeper, a more pressing question arises. And that question is then, when does accountability really kick in? Is it when people start voicing their concerns for the first time? Or is it when those same concerns become so glaringly obvious that they can't be brushed aside any longer? Now, guys, let's take a moment to consider this. Accountability that comes after the fact often feels less like a principled, stance. And it comes off as a reaction to pressure. It's like when someone finally addresses a problem only after it's blown up in their face. These late responses can feel very insincere, if you may. And it's almost as if they're just trying to save face rather than genuinely taking responsibility. I saw Zunqalelo, but it's only now where Peggy Kwele is also now being hoided into this thing, and the disciplinary committee and ziphumenini scandal skatata kwa yena. So nje it literally feels like they're just trying to save face rather than genuinely take responsibility. So vele, we are left wondering, when do we actually get to hold people accountable? And is it enough to wait until the issue is undeniable, or should we be proactive from the start, ensuring that accountability is a foundational principle instead of just a reaction to complaints?
That marks the end of today's video. Thank you so much for lending your eyes and ears. I hope that you found today's video informative. Please do not forget to click on that subscription button or light the little notification bell so that you do not miss out on any new uploads. Nkosi.